Welcome, everybody, to another episode of Beyond the Bar. My name is Oksana Davidova. I'm joined with Margarita Moshe as our co-host. And we are very excited today to have Leo Jacobs of Jacobs PC. Leo has a law office on Fifth Avenue, a boutique law firm who specializing in complex disputes involving hundreds of millions of dollars, from foreclosure battles to guaranteed litigation, partnership disputes, fraud actions, and major bankruptcies, just to name a few. I'm sure he's going to name us a few more. Leo's been around for a couple of years, very well known. I'm sure you've seen him in his own podcast that he does and breaks down the legal issues with regards to commercial litigation, bankruptcy, among other things. Leo, thank you for joining us today.
Thank you for having me.
Thank you, Leo. We're very excited to have you here today because of several reasons. First of all, you have a diverse practice of your own, and we want to hear a lot about your story, your journey, how you ended up where you ended up, and what led you to be the person that you are today. So we're going to probably start, I think, which is the most important question that a lot of our viewers have, is what made you decide that you wanted to be a lawyer?
So what made me decide to be a lawyer is my bad grades in chemistry and biology. I was sitting one day at Hunter College and going through Queens College, then going to Baruch College, then going to Hunter College, and then going back to Queens College. Not a lot of people know that story. And my grandma made me like a kielbasa sandwich, and I was eating there in undergrad and thinking, what the hell am I going to do with my life? Because I had some unimpressive grades in Hunter College. I had C's and D's. I famously got a D- in biology, and it hit me while eating my kielbasa sandwich that something's got to change. So what I did was I had a big black hat with a gold rim around it, and pulled it out. And I put my hand in there, and I put my hand in there, and I said, what can I pick? What can I pick to practice? And I pulled out lawyer. And I pulled out lawyer because I was good at philosophy. I was good at English, and I was good at articulating myself. So what I found was that necessity of having bad grades made me take a different direction in life. So one of the things that I was really proud of is that I got to figure out what I'm great at, and I got to figure out what I'm not so good at. So leaning into that intuition was my first lesson in understanding where I need to go. And I call that guidance. I call that intuition. Some people call that following God, Hashem. And I think you have to listen to your intuition about where you want to go. So that's my little story of how I got into law. When I chose that path arbitrarily, and no, I did not have a big black hat with a gold rim around it, right? That's imaginary. I said, I'm going to be a lawyer. And the moniker of being, as a Jewish man, being a lawyer or a doctor is quite ordinary in the path of a Jewish man. And I thought nothing of it at the time, because I said, this is what I have to be, either a doctor or a lawyer. What I've learned later in life is being a lawyer is not only answering your mother's and your father's, ambitions, but it's a becoming of a new person. So I can continue more if you have more questions.
Absolutely.
Well, you said you decided on law school with the magic hat. And when in law school, how did you find it? Given law school is not easy. I'm sure, you know how difficult it is. And you probably had your own, ups and downs in law school. Do you want to discuss that a little bit with us?
Sure. So not a lot of people know this as well. I went to law school at night. And the reason I went to law school at night is because I had a little bit of imposter syndrome. I did not really understand that law school was going to be as rewarding as it was. So at the time, I was extremely afraid that I was not going to get into law school. So what I did was I created a very, very low barrier to entry. And one of the lowest barriers to entry at the time is to do night classes. So night classes are easy or easier to get into.
Yeah.
Because you're working and the school understands. And it's a little bit of revenue building for the school and a little bit of, hey, these people want to kind of be in law. They don't know, but they kind of want to be lawyers, and it'll be a little easier for them to get in. And at the time, a full-time New York law school, I went to New York Law School, was 154 on your LSAT score. Nighttime was about 152, 151. I was batting at about 155, 156, 154. And I was like, look, I don't want to take the chance that I'm not going to get into law school. If I don't get into law school, I have no paved way forward in my life. Won't get married, won't have kids, won't do the great things that I want to do, which are all not real. The guide and the path of life is going to guide you anyway.
Right.
But I made that decision. I made the decision to apply for night school. I went into night school. I got in. No, what do you call it? No scholarship. No, book reimbursement. Nothing. It's just basically me. And my dad famously told me, he's like, look, I've paved and paid your way through Queens College, Hunter College, and frankly, your indecision. Now it's up to you. So I took out 9% loans, when everybody else was making a lot of money. I was effectively not only broke, but, not having any money to live, effectively borrowing money to live. Yeah, my mom gave me lunch money, but it wasn't the same. So the first true challenge was how to navigate investing into yourself. And you don't know you're investing into yourself because you're like, I'm just supposed to do this. I'm just supposed to take out 9% interest loans, $100,000 or $200,000. You don't know that's called investing into yourself. You're just basically afraid. No money, no job. You got to ask your mom for money. I mean, at least that was my circumstance. And you got to kind of make it through. So my first challenge in law school was getting into law school, being afraid throughout law school, taking out those loans, and probably getting my first, C plus in contracts. Who would know? I'm the foremost expert in guarantee laws and like billions of dollars. But I got a C in contracts. So the second challenge that I had is building a vision. And it's very difficult to do, again, when you are really the first generation, you have no association to associate with. And you're like, oh, so this is what a loan feels like. You get a C, you cry about it, and you kind of move on. So I created a little bit of a vision for myself and my challenge and getting through law school to get like to a 3.3, 3.4 GPA, which I effectively did get. And I said, I'm going to have a little bit of faith in me, and I'm going to have a little faith in God to get me through this road. So in building a vision, you have to have something greater than yourself. But also, some people forget that in building a vision, you have to have a problem that you need to overcome. If you have no problems, you have no hardships, right? If you can't try or strive for something, you can't build resilience. Resilience, there has to be resistance. And people forget that in order to create good character, even in law school, which is something so minute now compared to what the hell I'm doing every day, you need to have problems. So problems are necessary for a vision. And you'll never hear that on any Instagram or podcast. Maybe now you will. But the trouble is, if you don't have any problems, I don't think life is worth really fighting for. You become angry and resentful unto yourself about why you don't have any challenges to face. So building a vision is to challenge yourself. So in that regard, I began to do better at school. I began to build relationships. I began to exercise my intuition in a different way, to inform myself about what I'm feeling and how I'm feeling and what I'm doing and why am I getting this bad grade or why am I not, understanding the material as well. And I was always a B plus student, and I still did not know in law school whether I'm going to be great or not. I just was basically doing it just to do it. So my vision was really small, just really to finish law school. But I can keep going. Any other questions?
Well, I think a lot of our youth also have that same vision. They just want to get through law school, and they don't really have those. Yes, they do have hardships, but most of their hardships include, oh, am I going to pass this next exam? Or, how am I going to end up graduating? Or when am I going to end up graduating? Or I want to start a family. That, those are most of the time their hardships. So tell us a little bit about your experience other than your C in contracts, which seems very unlikely, but you're saying is true. Hard to believe, granting all of the contracts that you
But
go through now.
But I have to say, with all honesty, it makes you human, right? When people look at you like, oh my God, look at this very successful, commercial litigator. And you're sitting here and you're like, listen, I got a C plus in contracts. And if I got a C plus in contracts and I'm handling $1 billion negotiations, in which case you're giving so much people hope and so much people that, like you just said, you work through your hardships and you can persevere. So with that, I think, to Margarita's question, or Margarita's going is, what other, lessons or things you can tell today to the youth to say, listen, you'll get there. It takes time.
So there's many lessons, and I'll break it up into 3 or 4 parts. There's the individual self, and the individual self has a string of emotions and a string of aptitudes and objectives that it has to overcome to get to the next level. A very small example of that is you fighting with your sister or your brother, or you not understanding or getting very angry or upset about why you got a C in contracts. So emotions are data. They're not a state of mind, and people misunderstand that. So if you got a C in contracts, which I did at the time, I was reveling in really the self-loathing that I was feeling. And then I said, well, something has to change. So dwelling on something and recovering and resetting is almost paramount to your ability to get ahead. So you can put a timer on it. So I used to put a timer about my self-loathing, maybe 5 minutes, maybe 4 minutes. I put the timer on, I click, I cry about it, I bitch and moan, and then I turn the timer off and say, okay, great, now to solutions. It's a very practical, pragmatic way to set time for emotional regulation. But emotions are data. And this is particularly true for men, which secretly hide the little boy inside them about how they are inadequate and why it's never enough. The second lesson I want to, bestow upon the public is nothing is what it seems to be. So we like, as people, to put doors in front of ourselves and look at those doors and say, those doors are impenetrable and this is the end. So it's called doom creation. Also a psychological concept. My background is in cognitive psychology. A lot of people know me as an attorney, but I have a cognitive psychology degree. I used to study rats and parrots and their cocaine and heroin addictions. But that's besides the point.
I thought you didn't like biology.
Psychology. So
Did him some good.
Yes. So how do you overcome doom? How do you overcome anxiety? Because that's prevalent in our age, especially in a society that is filled with consumerism and materialism. You practice grounding. Grounding on a pragmatic and a practical scale is taking off your shoes and stepping on the cement, whether it's cold or hot, or stepping on the grass, whether it's cold or hot. So if you ever feel like, oh my God, it's the end, one of the things you can do is take your shoes off and get on the cement. And that coldness or that heat or that grass or that feeling, it really absolves all of the friction that you're feeling. So on a pragmatic and practical level, if there's an imaginary door, and I say that intently and emphatically, there's an imaginary door, and it's always going to be an imaginary door, that just means you haven't solved the puzzle. That's the third lesson. The third lesson is you're always going to be put into configurations you have to get yourself out. When you're playing a game on the phone, there's excitement. But when you're playing the game in real life,
There's stress.
So the deletion of that stress is not automatic. It's an intuition thing. Again, data, grounding, solutions based. You're in a puzzle. And if you begin to look at life from an emotional agnostic form, and you begin to look at life as solution based, you begin to have excitement. Now, there are people that do suffer from severe anxiety and severe depression and severe kind of paralyzation. And for those, there's, therapy and medication and stuff like that. But the reason I bring it to such a level that we're discussing here today is people want to know how I did it.
Yes.
Yeah.
Okay. All those things I have had to go through and regulate and sustain and withstand. I'll give you a story. About 2-3 weeks ago, no, about 7-8 months ago, excuse me, I argued one of my biggest cases in front of Judge Bannon, who's the chief administrative judge in State Supreme New York County. It was for a very big client. He's the largest New York City landlord, Joseph Chetri. It was a $282 million loan. Staggering number. The gentleman is, very publicly known, and I got the privilege of representing that person. And maybe what comes to mind is, hey, Leo's such a smart and, cool guy, and he probably, figured out how to win and stuff like that. It's not actually anything about that. It's about building a relationship. We hear that often on Instagram and Facebook and all these places. What does that mean? It means that relationship building occurs when the relationship is breaking down. That's why it's called relationship building.
That's an interesting way to look at it.
So relationships are tested. They're tested either by Hashem, they're tested either by you, and they're tested by the other person, or they're tested by black cats that walk into that relationship. I call those things black cats. So there's a third party sensory issue. There's a direct party sensory issue, which is basically from you to that person. There's a secondary, and then there's divine intervention. Right? At any point, it's either you, him, the other person, or her, third party, bus hits somebody, right? Or divine intervention. Understand and dictate to yourself where that intervention is coming from. If it's coming from you, it's typically emotional. If it's coming from the other person, it's typically emotional. There's ego involved. And from divine intervention, it's just a retrading of the place that you have to go. So following that is very, very important. And that's how I got to my $280 million case, which I won. I won on a Simchat Torah. Simchat Torah, the decision came down.
Divine intervention.
Divine intervention is a way. And sometimes those things do align. Now, my favorite line is empower yourself by empowering others.
Yes. And that's actually what we wanted to get into, because the whole idea of the podcast is to mentor our youth, but to also give them options, give them direction in where they want to go, because we do see that a lot of our youth nowadays is somewhat lost, and they are looking for that. And I know, and Oksana knows, that you had started an organization amongst the Bahrain lawyers specifically that was founded by you to gather all of the attorneys through also networking, connection, relationship building. I understand now is what your objective was. So tell us, how did you come to that idea, and what made you decide to do something like that?
No one has ever actually asked me publicly about my burning desire to bring people together. But it actually came from a selfish ideal. That selfish ideal is to be around people. A lot of people see me in the White Tower and the Ivory Tower. I know that. It's not bullshit. People talk shit about me all the time about that. They do. I do have haters. But what they'll find is, and I'm very emphatic and very direct, by the way.
Oh, I love it. Keep going.
Yeah. Authenticity is that they've painted that ivory tower for me. I didn't paint that ivory tower for myself. And what really I'm trying to do is not an egotistical, self-righteous, step forward in building this organization, but to share my responsibility of being a Baharian intellectual being. Because you are right. People do need direction. They need a shepherd. I didn't choose to be one. It's kind of like Moses. He didn't want to be a shepherd. God forced him to be. And I find myself in the same place. I wrestle with myself. In starting this organization. It's very big and bright and beautiful. It started with 70 people. We have 345 people that are paying their dues, that are making events, that are probably referring each other millions of dollars every single day. And the reason I did that, partly selfish, is because I want to be surrounded by my peers. I love my Baharian people. I love them. And I think that they deserve a place where they can share that responsibility. Now, there's another reason I did that. The other reason I did that is because I want to move Baharian people forward. And I can only do that through the exchange of ideas. And what I've learned is that I'm not the glue. I can't keep them together. The Baharian Law Association can keep themselves together, but they have to raise their own standards because we're lazy. And the third place is I have an extreme drive. I'm like the Sonic the fucking Hedgehog. And not the running part, the winding part, you know, he winds himself. And I hear always through the grapevine, how does Leo have time? How does Leo have time? Having time is really priority management. I have a TRO for my client for about a $341 million loan. That's in about an hour and a half. I'm here. So that means that this place today is probably more important than that loan. And it is. And it is because I'm here to inspire. So how do you inspire? You take a responsibility that you need to do that first. When you take that responsibility, you say, I'm going to envelop change in people. Then the difficult part starts. And action begins. You think I don't wrestle with myself and say I'm lazy or I'm not doing something? I do it despite. I do it despite that. I do it despite that. And I create the Baharian Law Association and still acting president because I have an emphatic belief that we can share our responsibility of the Baharian people together better than we can in our individual self. And I did have to field a little bit of the hate, a lot of the hate, and that's okay because I took that responsibility upon myself. He's this, he's that, he's this, he's that. But what I've gotten also is the realization or the development of my personality, my character, despite those things. Because otherwise, if I didn't have that challenge of building an organization, instituting change, emphatic change in the face of adversity, I don't think there'd be happier people in the world with respect to the Baharian Law Association. A lot of people come up to me and they say, Leo, thanks for what you created. And I always tell them, thank you for being a part of it.
No.
It's about the people. That's really how I feel.
No, thank you. I always wonder because we're both members of the association
Yes,
and we follow the chat and you respond almost immediately to everything. And I asked her the other day, I said, how does he have time to look through all these messages and very, very quickly with a response? How do you do it?
There's a fifth element to me. The fifth element, whether you like to believe it or not, is I am extremely empathetic. I'm a teddy bear in that regard. I'm a very generous soul. And if it was up to me, I'd serve the people all day, every day. Unfortunately, I do have a very big office to uphold. And this year we're going to be restructuring $8.3 billion of debt and equity in New York City.
Wow, that's impressive.
So I have to work. And the reason I respond the exact way and very quickly is because I see it as an undelegable duty that I have to do to my people. And the Baharian people deserve that. They deserve a responsible individual in the community that can take the hits, that can take the shots, and continue moving forward and serving that community, despite what that community may think or not think. The next step for our Baharian Law Association is going to be to build a 4 or 5 story tower that is going to have a continuing legal education division. It's going to have a political division, so people can actually come to our neighborhood and sit with our brass. I like to call our Baharian Law Association the brass. People such as yourself, Albert Dayan, and others that have left imprints in society, in the legal society, that have not yet been recognized in a way that they should be recognized in a more grander way. We're going to have greater galas. We're going to have bigger collaborative themes between other associations. And I've been nurturing this thing for about 3 years.
Yeah.
It's my third year.
We bear witness to that, so we can attest to it.
Yeah. So I want to take the next step. And the next step is going to be from those that take responsibility and say, I think I want to get along the vision of the BLA, not get along the vision of Leo. Let's get along the vision of BLA. I'm just a guy that's putting booger and toenail together and a little stick of gum to put it all together. It's going to be up to everybody else to keep it together. They have 15 committees.
Yeah.
You're part of one or two.
Yeah.
I got 15 chats all at one time. You brought everybody together. And we are a force to be reckoned with. We know how to exhibit change in our cases. Let's exhibit change together. And I think in investing my dollars and investing the funds of the BLA, it has become successful. But we need to get it more successful. We need to stand in the way of things that we do not believe in and exert that change through written form and oral form, because that's what lawyers do. And for those that are inspired and are listening, remember that inspiration lasts for 2.5 seconds. Whatever comes after is discipline. How do you create discipline? Discipline is only created when you're lazy. Negative emotion breeds discipline. It doesn't go without it. So you must feel those feelings, and in spite of that, you need to continue to move. That's how I live my life. Irrespective of rain, sleet, or snow. I'm like the U.S. Postal Office. It says it up there, right? We will deliver your mail. No matter if it's 10 inches or 5 inches, we'll always deliver the mail. That's how results are done.
So besides the, BLA and everything that you've done so far, why exactly into this? I mean, given your psychology background, I think I understand why, but if you want to delve more into why you went into helping, doing, commercial, you said distressed, litigation. And I think, I saw somewhere on your website, you call it, I'm just going to do quote, wartime. I want to delve into that a little bit in terms of what do you mean by wartime in terms of commercial litigation?
It's a very loaded question. Let me break it down for you. So when I speak, it's staggering. It's like, whoa. It's always like, whoa. And I know that that comes from really a complex that I have. It's a savior's complex, responsibility complex. I need to make and do the hardest possible goddamn thing there is and triumph at it. I'm like the guy that has to go to the double black diamond and ski from the slopes because I don't want to do bunny slopes. And high stakes, high reward is the place that I'm in. Volatility is a place where I know how to work. I always see myself as the guy in the Titanic burning the coal. It's hot, it's muggy, but I gotta fucking move this thing even though it's sinking. Now, that attitude has thrust me into the most difficult things and the most challenging things that someone can experience. But I do it in the development of my personality, not to harm myself, to create myself. The advent of being born is an extraordinary thing. It's 0.000000000000001% that you will be born. That everything after that is a little bit of suffering, a little bit of happiness,
And a little bit of luck.
and a lot of work. So I thought it to be the most extraordinary thing to develop in the most difficult thing I believe there is to be. Elon Musk has rockets, Amazon has logistics. I restructure the skyline. The structuring that skyline has been the most rewarding thing that I can do as an individual for myself and, of course, for my clients. Giving them a soft landing and understanding and learning from those people's, I want to say mistakes, but misguidance. Not seeing your intuition as it should be taken. Sometimes you say, I think I should do this, but you do this, and it turns out like, God damn it, it's just,
I should have done that.
Exactly. I learned a lot about what intuition seeking looks like. And I thought of it, the best thing to do would be to do the most hardest thing, and that's commercial litigation and bankruptcy on the highest levels. I consider it a privilege and an honor. And I think the higher you want to climb, the greater your ladder will get through the help of Hashem. And there's a very big theme here about Hashem. Hashem is a divine intervention. It's a divine and noble energy. And I think that in order to get more of it, you must be able to give. And you must be able to let go. In the most difficult times of fear, and letting go your biggest client, and letting go your biggest challenge, and letting go your biggest relationship, other doors not would open, they must open. And when they do open, you get to embrace a new and powerful self that you have to work through every single day. And wartime general, right? I'll tell you about wartime general. My person that I would want to have lunch or dinner with, dead or alive, is Winston Churchill. And Winston Churchill said, if you're going to hell, keep going. And he was the individual that stands above all when it comes to resilience. In the face of adversity, he stood tall. And we're talking about Hitler. Right. We're talking about being outnumbered. We're talking about letting pressure flow through you. Having a river flow through you is very nice. Having pressure, it's kind of like, I don't know, rocks flowing through you. And he knew how to do that. He exhibited that for me. And he was known as a wartime general. He was extricated after being a wartime general. In peacetime, you have to act differently. There's diplomacy. It's not easier. It's different. You stagger differently the priorities. You traverse the terrain differently. But in wartime, you're a little Machiavellian. It's a little evil inside because everybody wants something for something. And you have to understand how to peruse that for your interest and for your client's interest. And another thing, there's going to be times where things just don't fit. So you can't solve that puzzle. You'll have to break that puzzle. You have to rip it and create new pieces. And I believe that is the most creative thing someone can do. Creation is probably, for me, the most satisfying thing one can do. It's the biggest and greatest dopamine response. And I'll let you feel that for a second. I'm assuming you have kids.
Yeah.
When they first walked or they created something, you had that moment, right?
Of course.
When you have that, that's an involuntary bodily response that gives your dopamine release the way you would ever have a dopamine release. And we chase that every day. Unfortunately, I've been learning from my lovely wife that having less volatility in my life is a good thing as well. So learning how to contain the fire is probably the most important thing, especially when being a wartime general. Making the difficult decisions. Remember, as a wartime general, people will die. That is the inevitable feeling and result of what's going to occur. You have to deal with that. People will be upset, right? The frames of your consciousness, right, are going to be broken because you won't be able to control people dying and people feeling sad. So you have to find resilience in that and confidence in that. And when you're restructuring a few $1 billion, imagine talking to someone that's been used to being in the Maybach, being in a Rolls Royce, being in the Ivory Tower, For them to exhibit behavioral change, something massive has to occur.
Yes.
And when that massive things occur, guess what happens? They don't know how to deal with it. So I'm there to instruct them as a wartime general.
Oh. That's amazing.
That's interesting. So let me ask you this. Now I've known you for a while. We go way back. And I remember it's when you just came out of law school, you weren't necessarily doing this. And I know sometimes people have a misconception, like you mentioned, and I don't think you're in the ivory tower. I've known you long enough. I feel like you're a regular Joe you can talk to, and you're here talking to us and definitely going in deep. But you didn't start out your career straight out of law school into doing these high stakes litigation.
No, I started doing sanitation violations that are $30 a piece.
Seems very basic.
I got my first job at Cohen Hockman and Allen. So I was watching SpongeBob after graduating law school and taking the bar. And between that time, I had nothing to do. I was having a kielbasa sandwich again, watching SpongeBob.
I'm seeing a pattern here.
Yes, there's a...
The kielbasa is really like it inspires you, I think.
I'm just thinking that.
So it's 2 weeks or 3 weeks before I get my test results. I'm engaged to my wife, and I made a promise to my wife that when I get admitted, I will propose to her, and I did. Surprise, surprise. And she accepted. But before that, it was about 4 or 5 months before that, I needed a job. And no connections. I had $200,000 and 9% compounded every year. I was like, what the fuck am I not doing?
On the loan, just so we're clear.
On the loan.
Yes, the law school loan.
I'm sitting there. I'm like, okay, Houston, we have a problem. I was watching SpongeBob, and SpongeBob lost his job. And he created the most successful lemonade stand in Bikini Bottom.
Yeah.
So right then and there, about half an hour after watching that show, I got up and I went to Metropolitan Avenue, which is where I grew up. I had falafel sandwiches there. I had pizza every day there. I had my first job later there. And I walked up and down the block to represent people and solicit people for sanitation, Department of Health, Department of Transportation tickets. And walking up and down, in a matter of 2 hours, I had $2,200 in my pocket from retainers. And remember, as a non-attorney, you could do what? Solicit.
Yeah.
Can't do that.
After your return.
Get your license. So I won my first couple of pizza places, my Department of Health violations, my DOB violations. I got really fucking good at it. And I traded some space for free in exchange for work for a guy on Austin Street next to the police precinct. And I was there for about 6 months, 7 months. I was like, okay, I made $15,000. Obviously, this is not enough to have a baby. Obviously, it's not enough to pay my loans back. I need a fucking job. So I cold called and cold emailed someone that does sanitation violations and Department of Health violations on a very, very big scale. And I happened to find the biggest one. So that was my Bikini Bottom stories. I emailed LinkedIn, actually, Robert Hockman. I said, listen, pal, I got 15 cases, I'm about to get admitted. I need a job. He was so impressed, so impressed. He's like, how the hell did you do this? I was like, look, SpongeBob was my inspiration.
It was even more impressed then.
And I was like, you know what? So I'm going to give you a job. And I was thinking that $75K, $85K. He offered me $55,000. That was my first job.
Wow.
Today our firm is in the tens of millions. Got 15 lawyers working for me. Structuring a lot of debt and equity. But it's through those trials and tribulations that I became who I was. It wasn't like this, although it looks like this.
Well, yes. Looking now, yeah, it looks like that. But
Exactly.
this is your journey, and it wasn't an easy one.
Yeah, it was filled with a lot of grit And I worked there 6 a.m. every day or 7 a.m. every day till 9 p.m. And I was grateful for one person, my wife, because I came to her and I said to her, listen, I'm about to quit. And I've been doing this for a while. And I was called a sanitation king. Sanitation king. Because I had the greatest number of dismissals and sanitation violations. I mean, these are $30 and $100 tickets. And how popular can you be? I was so fucking popular that I had the judges there kind of respect me a little more. And I was kind of like the frog on the pond, like the pink frog on the pond. Still a frog. And I came to my wife. I was like, look, I'm burnt out. And I became burnt out because I did so well, so good, that I got a raise. Got a $2,000.
A whole $2,000.
$2,000. And when I got that raise, I was like, overexertion of energy, not enough for optimal output. And then what I did is I stopped and I said, I need a new job. So I leveraged that. And I was representing someone. I leveraged that and went in-house. And for 4 years, this is where I built my character. For 4 years, I was thrust, about 26 years old. I was managing about 40 lawyers, 20 different law firms. I used to do fix and flipping for a Brooklyn outfit. We basically built houses and sold them. But before that, I had to be the janitor. I had to clean everything up. I had to clean the liens. I had to clean the child support issues. I had to clean the wills, trust, and estate issues, the landlord-tenant issues, anything that was intended through cleaning the place up, right? The asset. And I got really good in strategy. I got really good about narrowing the time about how something has to be resolved. And then we closed up shop and we did well. He went and did a cannabis thing. He's still my friend, still my client. And I went and started a partnership. That partnership was in the spat of COVID. I signed a personal guarantee. Imagine being in COVID and you sign a personal guarantee around 10,000 square foot space.
Very volatile time.
Volatile. So grit and high risk taking. High risk behavior. Didn't work out for non-obvious reasons. We're still all friends. We still all hang out. Then I went to New York City. And the relationship between New York City and me comes back to my personality. Do the best and brightest and most hardest thing that you can find. Challenge yourself in the development of yourself. It all comes back to you. And today I swim in that fire. I control it, right? It's not without pain and suffering that you get ahead. Is that you go through pain and suffering and come out and say, I've handled that. So the satisfaction lies in understanding that pain and suffering will be consistent throughout your life. People dying, people getting sick, you failing. And it's accepting that. It's accepting that and moving through that. And that's what builds your grit and your resilience and your confidence. And then that could be transferred. That could be transferred into the law association. Then that could be transferred to your personal life. Always, in all of those three facets, have a grounding force. My grounding force is my wife, my children, my God, my community, and my service to myself.
You brought up Hashem several times. Can you tell us an instance where maybe it was a case that you were handling, maybe it's something in your family, personal life, that you maybe didn't know if you were going to come out of it or how you were going to come out of it? How does Hashem and how does God and how does divine presence really guide you through all of this?
Well, since you've asked, when I went to New York City, a lot of people thought I was in New York City with this big office space. I was in a WeWork. That was my first space.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I didn't know that.
I have a 9,000 square foot Fifth Avenue place now. It's millions of dollars a year in rent.
I was paying about $4,000 or $5,000 or $6,000 in a WeWork. I had 6 people in this quarter of the size of this room. It's about 36 months ago. So you want to talk about belief. Belief is when you do something in fear, you let Hashem take care of the rest. But you're like, hey, Leo, I got bills to pay and I got a kid. Well, I had a kid too. I had 2 kids. I didn't have a lot of money. I had no money. I was walking to Miami with my wife. It was post-COVID, EIDL. And I was supposed to get an EIDL loan because of what was happening. There was some lady, randomly, me and her walking by the river, by the coast, randomly. Because I've taken all these risks already. I was like, you know what, God? I'll make a deal with you, pal. I'll take the risk, you take care of the rest. She's like, I got you. I took those risks. I went to New York City, took out the WeWork. And some lady, Shaquina, called me. She said, Mr. So-and-so, you are getting a loan for blah, 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 blah. It was the most random thing in the world, but it was not random at all. It really felt like you had a hand.
Yeah, exactly at the right time.
And you didn't expect it. You didn't know it was going to come, but you felt it. And that's what built my first 3,000 square foot space. It was about $16,000 or $20,000 a month or something like that. I built that and I invested a lot into my reputation. Reputation's probably the most important thing in the world. It carries you in credit. It carries you in relationships. It carries you to yourself. Because remember, value is not external. No matter how much or what we dress like and what we drive and who we are, it can only be satisfied with internal strength. And that has to be forged in a fire. It cannot be forged by you being lazy or you not asking God for what you actually want and afraid of to get. I want to be a billionaire. But that's a very, very fearful thing to be because you get more enemies, you have more responsibilities. So I've learned that God is a companion. He's not an all-being of what you can ask him for and be gluttonous in what you request. There's an exchange. That exchange is the way I've learned it. The way I don't think anyone has described it before is this is the exchange. God, I'm going to take on greater responsibility to myself, to my community, and to others. In exchange for that, I'd like $1 billion or whatever, right? Or a new car or a new whatever. And God likes that because you empower yourself by empowering others. And when you do that, you give the Goyim and the Jews and the purple people and the black people, everybody, something to stand on. The shared responsibility of what you're doing and now what they're doing. God looks at that and says, okay, he's made the world better. He's created something. I think I need to give him a little more resource. I'll give him a new friend. I'll give him a new office. I'll give him a new image. And God does that. Interestingly enough, my last story, I don't know if you know, but I was profiled by The Real Deal. And no one in the history of The Real Deal has ever been profiled as an attorney. I didn't pay for it. It's organic. It was a 3-page spread. And you want to talk about divine presence. I'm born. Anybody know when I was born? 8/18/88. You know what the title of my Real Deal article was?
8/18/88?
1-800-CALL-LEO-18. What does 18 stand for?
Hi. Bye.
You know what page my story was on?
18.
36.
Double high.
Did you know what the subsections of each story told and had? 888. Divine presence was everywhere there.
That's amazing.
You don't even have to look for it. It's just there.
It's just there. You have to acknowledge that you need to take responsibility in life for yourself and for others. People or God does not put something so heavy. Ladies, I feel very responsible to myself and responsible to others. That's why God embraces me with all these things. Not because I'm such a great guy, but because I take responsibility for my peers. I take responsibility for myself.
Oh, that's great. That's really amazing to hear. And it's actually very, very true. And I think a lot of us need to hear that once in a while, that you just have to, that exchange needs to take place. It's not one way. God does not, you don't pray and God just gives you. You have to, there has to be something there, right?
I agree.
My next question I wanted to ask you was, what is your end goal? What is your 5-year plan? Where are you going? We all want to know.
Where do I want to go? I want to be a more faithful man to Hashem. I want to be a more responsible person to my community. I want to exclaim that education is probably the most important thing for our young people.
Mm-hmm.
So ultimately, I take inspiration from Levi Leviyev and him building a school, and I'd like to have the opportunity to do the same. So my ambitions are greater than me today. That is my North Star. I'd like to not only build synagogues, but build community centers, which I'm trying to do with the Bahraini Law Association. And that is a noble pursuit and a noble feat. Hopefully I've described to you that I'm no in way, shape, or form a perfect person. And that the mramar, right? They call it a mramar, a marble, always has cracks in it and always has dark spots in it, and there's imperfection in that. Hopefully I've communicated that, and hopefully that's resonated. But that doesn't mean you can't look good. That doesn't mean you can't have a nice car. Doesn't mean you can't have a nice office. Materialism is valuable as long as you know that it's not. It's only there to make you look good. You have to look good and you have to feel confident. You have to have a nice head of hair. You have to have nice clothing. You have to, drink what you want to drink, right? But that's all in the toil of responsibility. It's not in the toil as an end. People use it as an end. I've had all the cars in the world. Bentleys, Ferraris, Lamborghinis, everything. There's not enough materials in the world to satisfy the hunger. There isn't. Do I drive an A-Bet? Yeah, drive an A. But I have a driver. But that's the responsibility of what I need to build. And I think that's okay. And I think if God gives, when you exchange that responsibility, that's great. Last thing I guess I'll say is Avi Hiayev is someone that inspires me. He has a great reputation. Your husband, Jan Moshe, inspires me. Ilya Zavalunov inspires me. Michael Zavalunov inspires me. Lev Petalov inspires me. My wife, Rada, inspires me. My wife's father inspires me. Mother inspires me. My Rabbi Cohen inspires me. I inspire myself every day. My team, my people. I guess the last thing I want to say is when you come to a podcast, make sure you have something real to say. Make sure you have something memorable to say. Make sure people feel that way, because that's where inspiration is born. It's born in authenticity.
Absolutely.
That's where it's born.
I'm inspired.
I think I've learned a lot. I've known Leo years now, and I've learned a lot today about you as well.
I mean, I don't know you that well, but, your reputation speaks for yourself. I hear only very good things about you and what you've done, and your community outreach and everything that you've done with that is really inspiring. But after today's podcast, I don't think there's going to be a single person who watches this that isn't inspired, because it's just, like you said, wow.
I feel like the other thing, what you just said in terms of when you come to a podcast, everybody knows Leo, right? Like you said, and you assume, I guess, the ivory tower. But I would think anybody knows Leo, the man himself, where he started, who he was, who he is, who he still is, right? Like you said, at the end of the day, we still have that little child inside of us where we feel, and through all that, we need the connections, and our connections from the past, the future, the present, the future. So thank you again.
Yeah,
It
thank
was
you so
a very inspirational conversation.
I think it's actually very beneficial to a lot of our viewers and our youth that are watching
Yes.
today, that, you know, the direction that they need to take is, yes, you have goals, you have ambitions, but you also have to give in back. You have to return, either it's to God, to your family, to your obligations are not just to fulfill what you say, material needs. Yes, they are important and they do make us feel good, but there is a whole other world around us. And if you give, you will receive as well. So thank you for that message. Thank you for all the other messages that you provided us today. And I know you have a TRO, so we're not going to keep you long. Thank you.
Thank you so much for being with us today.
Thank you. Thank you so much for your time, your generosity, and for your responsibility to better our youth.